After the forecasting, friends, the next discussion is the uh, growth calculation, and when we will depend on external financing and when we will not depend on external financing. Based on the growth, if you want to grow at a very normal speed, at a slow growth, you might not depend on external financing. Your internal financing, that is retained earning. We have seen in the previous example the retained earning of the company or retained earning of the we have forecasted the retained earning as, you can go to the income statement. Yeah, here is the accumulated retained earning. 266 million is the retained earning we forecasted for 2020. So if you are growing at a slow rate, this 266.63 million external, the 266 million which is kept in the business might help for growth. You need not depend on external money, external funding. But if you are growing at a higher rate, you might need to go for external financing. How we do that? From the growth calculation. We have two different type of growth. There are many ways growth is calculated, like arithmetic mean used, geometric mean used, many different ways. Industry average is used, but the scientific one, we use two different ways to calculate the growth. One is the growth which is known as the sustainable growth rate. The other one is internal growth rate. So what is internal growth rate? It is the rate at which, if the company is growing, the company might not depend on external money. It might manage with the retained earning. In this company, 266 million around the retained earning is there. With that, the company can manage. That is internal growth only. We are growing at the internal generated fund, which is known as internal growth rate. What is the formula used here? The formula here is ROA multiplied by RR, return on asset, multiplied by retention rate. Return on asset multiplied by retention rate. Return on asset multiplied by retention rate. Here is the growth calculated. So let me go there. Yeah, internal growth rate. The formula here is, you can read the formula in the comment area written, ROA multiplied by B. These are the letters we use for the specific notation. B for retention rate. ROA is for return on asset. So ROA multiplied by B divided by 1 minus ROA multiplied by B. Formula is looking complicated, but it is easy. Whatever is the numerator, you remember, in the denominator 1 minus that. ROA multiplied by B divided by 1 minus ROA multiplied by B. This is the internal growth rate. We have used that. You know, your ROA is how much? Written on a 10.11%. ROA multiplied by B. B is 66.67%. That is the retention rate. Divided by 1 minus ROA into B. It came 7.22%. So in this rate, if the company, here the Hoffman company's example is provided to you. Let me show you the, yeah. Here the Hoffman company's example is provided to you, where the Hoffman company, the Hoffman company's and ROA is 13.2% and the retention rate is 66.67%. So ROA into B, that means 13.2% multiplied by 66.67% divided by 1 minus 13.2% multiplied by 66.67% is equal to 9.65% for Hoffman. For our company, that is Proofrock, I calculated for Proofrock, the internal growth rate is 7.22%. How? Again, ROA multiplied by B divided by 1 minus ROA multiplied by B is equal to 7.22%. This is the internal growth rate. If the company is growing at this growth, then it need not depend on external financing. It can sufficient, self-sufficient, and from the retention rate, it can grow. That's why the name is internal growth rate. But if the company becomes bigger and larger and grows at a higher speed, we can calculate the sustainable growth rate, which is known as simple difference. In the internal growth rate, what was the formula? ROA. Instead of ROA, you just make it ROE. Rest all the same. There we used the formula ROA multiplied by B divided by 1 minus ROA multiplied by B. Here we have used ROE multiplied by B divided by 1 minus ROE multiplied by B. There return on asset used, here return on equity used. Some of the authors, they directly use ROE multiplied by RR or ROE multiplied by B. RR means B, retention rate. So some authors use that, but this author, uh, Ross, Waterfield, and Jordan, they have used ROE multiplied by B divided by 1 minus ROE multiplied by B. Let us calculate for the same company, for the Hoffman. If we calculate the ROE, then 26.4%, retention rate is 66.7%, then sustainable growth rate is equal to ROE multiplied by B divided by 1 minus ROE multiplied by B. ROE is 26.4%, yani 0.264. Retention rate is 66.67%, or we can say 0.667. So using this formula, we got the sustainable growth rate, or we call it SGR. The SGR is 21.36%. The IGR is 9. The IGR is 9.65%. If the company wants to grow the IGR or internal growth rate, it need not depend on outside funding, outside financing. It is self-sufficient. If it wants to grow faster at the sustainable growth rate, then we used to use the formula ROE into B divided by 1 minus ROE into B, and it comes to 21.36%. For the proof of company, we calculated the sustainable growth rate, ROE multiplied by growth, ROE multiplied by B divided by 1 minus ROE multiplied by B, it comes to 10.29%. We have used this growth rate for the expansion. And you see, if the company grows at this rate, that is SGR, it might need external funding 67 million. So this is the way we calculate the sustainable growth rate and internal growth rate. The determinants of growth rate always is the profit margin, that is operating efficiency, operating profit divided by sales, dividend policy, that is because the ROE multiplied by B divided by 1 minus ROE multiplied by B. That means B means the dividend policy, retention rate. Financial leverage, total asset divided by total equity, total asset turnover, total sales divided by total asset. So these are the four inputs we always use for calculating the growth. Now the last part of the discussion is some of the caveats regarding financial planning model, some of the drawbacks we can say, some of the demerits we can say, or caveats of financial modeling. Financial modeling do not indicate which financial policies are the best. Models are simplifications of reality, and the world may change in an unexpected way. No one thought in the beginning of 2020 or in the end quarter of 2019 the situation of COVID-19 will come. The world will be totally upside down in 2020 and 2021. This is the real life, which is simplified in the financial model, might not happen. Without some sort of plan, the firm may find itself drift in the sea of change without a radar for the guidance. So these are the problems of financial modeling and planning. So see the quiz and any question, you can refer me. How to standardize the balance sheet and income statement, how to standardize, how it is useful, what are the major categories of ratios, how do you compute the ratios within each category, what are some of the problems associated with financial statement analysis, what is the purpose of financial planning, what are the major decision areas involved in the development of a plan, what is the percentage of sales approach, what is the internal growth rate, sustainable growth rate, and major determinants of the growth. So these are the and more and more, the kind of reading of the books will help you for getting more clarity. I will stop the recording here, and just give me a second. Let me stop the recording.